Hello, this is HT Wingnut, and today I'm going to show you the Sega NP9873. That's the Sega NP9873 laptop features, and we'll start here with the BIOS. You can see here, the main screen is pretty basic, and you hit F2 to get into the BIOS on boot up. So just jam on that until you get into here. In any case, date and time, SATA port information. Here I've got one SATA drive in there, which is a 1 terabyte SSD that I use benchmarks and games and stuff on it for my systems. And that did not come with the system. What came with it? We'll look here. No SATA controller offboard, and the offboard NVMe controller, which is the M.2 drive. The Toshiba RD400 is one that came with this machine, and it gives you basic information on the laptop itself. Under advanced, you've got advanced chipset control, GPU performance scaling. I believe that's allowing GPU overclocking. Flexi charger, not sure what that is, but it says if you set the flexi charger to enable, note that over time the battery's meter reading accuracy will deteriorate, and it's disabled by default. These are all default settings that you see in here, except for one. I'll show you that later. Hyperthreading enabled, disabled. Active processor cores, all 1, 2, or 3. Intel virtualization technology, enabled, disabled. Intel SpeedStep, enabled or disabled. VTD, enabled or disabled. Fast boot is disabled by default, but it can be enabled as well. DDI control option there. Thunderbolt options, enabled, disabled Thunderbolt, and security level options too. Overclocking performance menu. Most of the stuff you can do from the Windows utility, the Clevo CPU and memory overclock utility, but one thing you can't do, it gives you a warning there that if you go into here, okay, it could cause an unstable system if you mess with these settings, but PL1, PL2, customer setting if you want to fuss with that. VR custom setting. The one thing here is the core ratio override. The Windows version of this, for some reason, it will not, the minimum value in the Windows utility is basically whatever you put in here. So if you want to underclock, which in this case, because the system can run a little toasty, although if you undervolt the system, it runs fine at 4 gigahertz. It maintains within limits. But if you wanted to underclock for some reason, you'd have to go in here and manually change these numbers to, you know, whoops. How do I? Not letting me. Oh, just type it in there. See, automatically update everything. 40. Cache ratio, processor, core voltage adaptive. The other thing is the core voltage offset here. For some reason, it's showing it. First of all, adaptive basically means that it will adjust as needed. It won't just be a fixed voltage, but it will. This core voltage offset will adjust that voltage, like core voltage, by this much. So this case, you know, I don't know why in the Windows utility I set it to minus 160 millivolts. For some reason in the BIOS it sets it to 160. I think it should say minus 160, but the actual voltage is less when I set it to minus 160 in the Windows utility, so I'm not going to touch this value here. And then memory, you can set different custom profile or XMP profiles, and this also can be done through the Windows utility. Make sure I turn that off. Oops. Security, secure boot, enabled, disabled, TPM configuration, security device support, pending operation, supervisor password, let's see here, boot option, UEFI setting, and that's pretty much it. Again, real quick here, it says firmware 11.0.16.1000, 32 gigs of RAM, DDR4. You can see it's a P870DM3 DM3. This is the DM3, and 2 GTX 1080 GPUs. So with VBIOS 86042A002C. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and boot into Windows and show you some features there. All right, now that we're into Windows on the Sager NP9873, I'm going to show you some of the features on here. This comes with a few Clevo applications, and we'll go ahead and start with the Clevo Control Center because that's really kind of the center hub for all these applications. You can see the other things: GPU overclock, CPU memory overclock, and FlexiKey are all on here, but they can all be launched to the Clevo Control Center. You can access that by going to your system tray. It should come preloaded, or you can just hit the function and escape key on your keyboard, and it'll show up there as well. You can see here from the main screen, you've got your different performance profiles: quiet, power saving, performance, entertainment. Simple as that. You have fan speed profiles. This shows you your speaker volume. This is your brightness. So if I just, you can also adjust it through here as well. And then your screen brightness, or you can use the function keys equivalent for that. Fan speed control, hit maximum. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and start up HW Info. Sensors, and there's the fan speed. Okay, right now they're running at about 1500 RPM, 15 to 16, 1700. But if I go to maximum, see them bounce up there to about 4300, 4400 RPM. You can set this overclock setting, which basically increases the fan speed in general. It can go as high as this maximum speed once the temperatures get up there. Or you can go to custom setting, where you can do your start temp, stop temp, and then your full fan speed is percentage of the full fan speed. So it won't get to maximum speed, but it will get 80% of the maximum speed if you set it to that at your maximum speed in your profile setting. So you can tune it somewhat for your liking for cooling and audio, I guess sound, tolerance for the fans. You have performance, balance, power savings. Basically, your same as your Windows profile here, and your hibernate and sleep when you hit the sleep button. Although there is no sleep button in this, so I'm assuming if you just tap the power button, that's what it'll do. Change desktop background, display switch, time zone, device here. Disable, enable touchpad, enable, disable camera, and the Flexi access. I still haven't looked up what that is yet, but I'll have to look that up. And then gaming, you can enable, disable the left Windows key, and there's only one Windows key, so you will not have a Windows key if you disable that. And that's headphone impedance. Right now I'm using a USB microphone, so it shouldn't show anything there anyways. And now you've got the three different utilities that come with this as well, which gives you, well, real quick up here you can see your num lock, caps lock, scroll lock, and your airplane mode status. And okay, we'll go into the FlexiKey app. Basically, it's a macro and backlit keyboard application. You can basically, let's enable, and then you can have it launch applications or do whatever you want with it. It's pretty flexible. I haven't used it much, but some people like to macro the heck out of things. Statistics. It'll track statistics for the frequency of keys typed. Then the backlit. There's the three zones on the keyboard here, as you can see. There's also the backlit lid for the laptop as well. And then each of them, they can use different modes, cycle, breathe, custom, random, flash, set your different colors, whatever you'd like. And there's your three zones, all of them, the laptop logo. Oh, it says logo. It's really the lid feature lights, I call it. Okay, that's what it is for the FlexiKey app. Let's go into the GPU overclock utility next. You can see here, I'll minimize this other stuff. It gives you your core clock speed, current GPU temperature, and your current GPU clock speed. You can see you can change them individually, 1 and 2. So first one I believe is the master, second one is the slave, but you can turn on overclocking with this. Basically it's your core adjustment based on the core speed. So let me go ahead and fire up. I disabled SLI in the system for this video anyways, for this reason here. GPU-Z allows us to do a render test. Now these sensors should match up with this. So we start render test. Let's see, it goes up to 1873 megahertz. So it's hitting boost. You know, this one says it should only go up to 1771, so you get an extra 100 megahertz boost anyways. But what I can do is I can go ahead and I'll stop this. I'll change the core increment down 100 megahertz, save it. Blah, 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 system stability. Well, we're underclocking, so it shouldn't matter. Start render test, and you can see it's down to 1770 megahertz. So it's basically adjusts according to that core clock speed. All right, we'll go ahead and turn this off. Also notice if you turn on GPU overclock, the fans will definitely spin up higher. It automatically activates that. If I can find it here. Oops. I wouldn't say it automatically hits. It goes to custom profile, but it will crank up your fan speeds pretty significantly if you turn on GPU overclock here. Okay. And last but not least is the, where'd it go? CPU memory overclock. Similar type of app. You have your CPU information here, clock speed, temperature, voltage, amount of memory used, a total of 32 gigs in the system, CPU utilization. It's an Intel Core i7-6700K. Note that you need the K CPU, not just the 6700. Without the K CPU that does not have the K after it, you cannot adjust voltages, timings, or any of that stuff that I'm aware of. Well, first we'll look at the memory. Memory, you can, the DIMM profile information is here, but you can set your own here if you'd like, or you can do it through the BIOS as you saw earlier. Go into the CPU. Here's where I said, like earlier in the BIOS, that this is now set to, normally this default, this is set to 4.2 gigahertz. But whatever you set in the BIOS, this will not go any lower than that here. So you can overclock with this, but you cannot underclock with this utility. So it almost may be better to set in your BIOS a lower clock speed and then overclock here if you want to, if you're trying to fine tune it. Or you want to adjust it to a lower clock speed for certain instances or another. One thing I have not noticed is not like you can save different profiles. Oh, that would be a nice option to add, but they don't have that. So you got to manually go in here and adjust it to where you want it. Quick little update here. I went to the BIOS and set the clocks to 3.8 gigahertz. You can see here now that I did that. It shows up here, and it actually, since I did that, I'm able to adjust the core multipliers all the way down to 8x, all the way up to 83x. So I guess by bumping that in the BIOS, it basically unlocks this utility to allow you to underclock as much as you want to, or overclock. So interesting little tidbit there. Hope that clarifies things a little bit. And back to where we were. Set power limits, adaptive CPU voltage. What I'm going to do is, right now I have it set at stock voltage, so 0 millivolt offset of the adaptive voltage. So when we run this, see your CPU, why is this utilization going up to 100? Oh, you know what? 'Cause I got 4 threads. Hold on, let me rerun this at 8 threads. Either way, you can see that the voltage is 1.29 volts. Thread count to 8. 1.311 volts. And this utilization is lagging a little bit, but it should be about 100%. I don't want to run 1024 million because it'll take several minutes to run through it. But 1.3 volts approximately at stock voltage. If we go ahead and I've been running this at -160, it's easier to use the arrow keys because use the mouse, it's too sensitive. Sometimes I have to save this twice. I don't know why. That didn't seem to take, so save again. All right, now when we go to run W prime, 1.12, 1.15 volts. So it dropped at about approximately 100, what was it, 1.3 before? Now it's almost 150 to 200 millivolts less. And that results in the benchmarking good, like at stock voltage it was running about 100 degrees Celsius. With the undervolt, it's only running about 80 to 85 at most. So that definitely helps to undervolt. I've noticed most of these Skylake CPUs, you can undervolt them by at least 150 millivolts. So you're going to get some good thermal improvements there. Other things, you can actually set the actual physical voltage to just like 1.25 if you want to, and then do your own offset adjustment based on that, or you can just do adaptive so that it adapts based on the load on the CPU. Hopefully that made some sense. In any case, let's see here. Last thing, oh, yes. Close this out. Now I'm going to show you some information on the system itself using HWInfo64, good little app, free app. You can see the CPU, as we talked about, is i7-6700K, 95 watt TDP, Skylake, 4 gigahertz, blah, 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 motherboard, Intel Z170 chipset, and the P870, the Clevo P870DM3. This one's the DM3. It's got 32 gigs, two 16 gig DDR4 SODIMM RAMs. All the details you want there, but total 32 gigs. PCI bus, video adapter, dual GTX 1080s. Monitor. This one has the AUO B173HANO 1.2, which is 120 hertz non-G-Sync display, but it's a very nice monitor. Very responsive. Very good, I think, color reproduction and no ghosting or no backlight bleed at all that I've noticed, and it is an IPS. Nice monitor. Maybe this one just got lucky. Drives, no floppy drives, SATA tappy drives. You've got a few of them here. RD400. That's the one that came with the system, a 512 gig. Audio, network, got the Qualcomm killer dual gigabit Ethernet controllers, and the battery, which is an 89 watt hour. This one has 87.5 watt hours, and gets about 2 hours streaming, or not streaming, but I guess playing a video with all wireless systems off, so no Bluetooth, no wireless Wi-Fi or anything. I haven't tried it with it on, and maybe it should get about the same, but it definitely made it about through a whole episode of Star Wars Empire Strikes Back before the system decided to shut down. That's enough on that. Now I'm going to, I was trying to bring up the Spider utility for the calibration, so what I'm going to do, I was having some trouble with that, so the LCD itself is a, zoom in a little bit. see the color gamut is 97% of sRGB and 75% of Adobe RGB. So it's a pretty good monitor. The brightness, 329 with 1150 to 1 contrast at 100% brightness, 178.9 at 50%. So it's got pretty good contrast and brightness as well. I believe the specs call for 300 brightness and only something like 800 to 1 contrast. So it's definitely better than what the specs indicate. And I don't know if this is of interest to anybody. This doesn't matter to me, but maybe someone else finds it useful. The gray ramp, tone response. So then next what I'll do is take you through some, I don't want to do that. Here we go. Nope. There we go. Benchmark results. First thing we'll do is run through power settings. Let's see here, power. I ran it with 1080p, 3K, and 4K for game benchmarks, and then artificial benchmarks, they ran at whatever resolution their default is set to. But in any case, we'll go ahead and look at the power running some of these artificial benchmarks. I don't know why these are so small. I thought I made these bigger. But in any case, you can see with SLI enabled, we're running 465 watts, 480 watts, 482 watts peak. With a single 1080 GTX 1080 card, it was running about 300 watts, a little over 300 watts on 3D Mark 11 peak. So this has dual 300 watt power supplies attached to it through an adapter. You should get the adapter with the system if you order an SLI, unless someone's managed to come up with a 500 to 600 watt power supply that you can plug directly in here. And the power, let's take a look at some 4K. Oops. Same thing, your peak power consumption with SLI is in the 470 to 490 range, and with a single card, I guess some of these ran a little high, but about 300 watts. Looking at the CPU temperatures, let's see, 1080p gaming. You can see the CPU ran typically 78 to 80, whether in SLI, blue's SLI, and the red is just a single card. So SLI, it ran in the 80s. For some reason, Doom ran all the way up to 88, but you can see the average temperature is here. So averaged at 81 and peaked at 88. Let's go to 4K. 4K, you can see in SLI, your CPU temps went way up, but that's your peak temps, right? So it spiked at one point, maybe the fans kicked in, and then it dropped down pretty quick. So either case, your average temperatures are below 80 C, and with a single card, you're below 70 C. So, and actually in the low 60s. Let's see here, we go to the GPU temps. We'll go to the artificial benchmarks first, like 3D Mark stuff. GPU, let's see here, what's the legend here? Oh, this is SLI, so, oh, sorry. This is single. Okay, we might as well look at this. This is the single GPU, running just one GPU with SLI turned off. Your peak GPU temps were with Ashes of Singularity up to 80, otherwise it was down to the 70s with the averages below 70 for the most part, with it a little higher with Unigen and Ashes of the Singularity. Looking at the 1080p game with a single GPU. Let's see here. You're in below 83 for everything with a single GPU and averaging, in the 70s here, even in the 60s. And then I keep moving on. We'll look at the 4K results. I also did 3K ultra wide, but we won't care about that right now. It'll fall in somewhere in between here. And again, peak temperatures of single GPU at 4K we're running at about 80 C, and averages you know, in the mid 70s or below. Now going to SLI, we'll go ahead and look at artificial benchmarks first again. What you see here is red is the master GPU, blue is the slave GPU. Again, these are average temps here in the lighter colored bars with the white text, and the black text is the peak temperature during that benchmark. So some of these, 3D Mark 11, you can see it got pretty high. 3D Mark TimeSpy again up into 90C. So 91C, 90C, 85C, 86C. Again, that's peak temps. So, but your average is much lower, below 80 across the board, except for Unigine Heaven. So actually not too bad. And that's with the stock fan profile too. Going on to 1080p gaming. You can see, zoom in a little more. There we go. Again, your MasterCard, well, Doom ran pretty hot, 91C, although an average was actually up there as well. So the other games, even though Metro Last Light peaked at 93, it averaged at 80, and Witcher 3 peaked at 88, averaged at 76. So you can see all in all, run a best line curve through here. You know, you're typically, in a couple exceptions, you're running, averaging very much under 80C for both cards at 1080p. And then for 4K, similar type of deal. Let me back out a little bit. 4K, you can see the GPUs were up at 90C, right around the thermal limit of 91C. And the SL slave card also up in the upper 80s. However, your average temperatures, we're still up there. They're pretty toasty at low 80s, upper 80s here. GTA again. No, GTA was lower on the 1080p. I don't know why it's so high here, but and there you go. Then finally, the actual game benchmarks. What you see here is purple is my desktop of the GTX 980 Ti. The green is running with a single GTX 1080 and the Sega NP9873, and the red are SLI results. So SLI obviously has some issues depending on the game and what the drivers support. You can see that here with Batman Arkham Knight, where a single card did better than an SLI, which is kind of weird. Crisis 3, it scaled pretty well. 980 Ti, single 1080, 1080 SLI. Deus Ex Mankind, undivided. There it scaled okay, but you'd expect higher with SLI, but I think this game has some optimizations to go. This game just came out recently. Doom, again, it's not the best, and I know that the SLI for Doom really has been questionable. There's no way I was able to force it in any way, shape, or form. So, but in any case, I mean, with single card, I mean, heck, you're running average minimum 108 FPS with 143 average FPS at that's 1080p. GTA 5, again, didn't scale well. Hitman didn't scale well. Metro Last Light, for some reason it went off through the roof with SLI. It's good to see, I guess, but kind of weird why it did that. Rise of the Tomb Raider, SLI kind of stunk. Witcher 3 actually did pretty well. For some reason, I don't know why the single 1080 did worse than the 980 Ti in here, but it did slightly worse. And it scaled fairly well with SLI at 1080p. Go ahead and take a look at 4K benchmarks. You've got Batman Arkham Knight. Again, didn't scale well, but you can see the trend here in general is the 1080 in a laptop is well outperforming a desktop GTX 980 Ti by a good 15 to 20% in a lot of cases. Here, this is 20%. This is, what's 10% is 4 frames, 20% is 8 frames, 30%, here. So pretty impressive. In any case, the real benchmark here, that was 4K, which people are, are we there yet? I think with SLI we might be, as long as the game supports it. You can see, again, Batman Arkham Knight, it's playable with a single card. Crisis 3, awesome scaling, excellent performance, 4K Ultra. What? Okay. Sorry, very high, but that's very high as Ultra settings in Crisis 3. Deus Ex Mankind Divided, Ultra. You can see that scaled very well at 4K for some reason, whereas it didn't do squat at 1080p. Doom, it's scaled slightly at 4K with dual cards. GTA 5 actually did pretty well at 4K. For some reason at 1080p they didn't scale well, but at 4K it's going pretty well. Hitman, again, scaled well, didn't do well at 1080p. And Metro Last Light Redux did remarkably well. Basically double the performance of a single card. But still, we're 28 frames per second minimum, 48.9% frames per second average. Rise of the Tomb Raider did remarkably well for some reason, again at 4K, so I wouldn't complain. And Witcher 3 scaled really well at 4K as well. But again, you can see the 1080 bested the desktop GTX 980 Ti by a decent amount. And I think that's about all we need to show for now. So anyhow, I hope you found this video informative, entertaining, and hopefully I can bring you some more detailed information in the near future here. Thanks for listening.